Hello, everybody. Yeah, it looks a bit different behind me. I'm not at my usual place, and there's this property we have that we're renting out, and I'm talking to estate agents, and so in between, I am making some quick videos. We'll see how the quality comes out. So today, we're just going to have a look at some slightly weird commands. Doesn't really follow in the logical flow of these lessons, but oh well. First one, it's a bit of a joke. Is computer on? You know, so this is part of the Haiku API. It came out of the BOS API, and it's just got to be a joke because if the computer is not on, then is there anywhere to run a program? See, but so while computer is on, look at this example. That's an infinite loop. But you could just as well say while true. Okay, so don't worry about that. Then peek string, and poke. Now on old basic versions, like Quick Basic, you use those to inject some bytes directly to an address. And they used it to put in little snippets of assembly language for speed. Hey, 30, 40 years ago, getting more speed out of a computer was a big thing. Now we can barely keep up with all the cores. Okay, so YAB won't do that. YAB does not, as far as I know, have a way of directly saying at this memory address, inject the following bytes. So we've inherited those commands. We use them for slightly different things. So let's look at poke first because it's the shortest. Two things. You can change the info level. That basically means how much messages you get back when you run a program and there's an error. 90% of the time you really don't want to worry about that. But you might. If you know about memory addresses and registers, then you may want to change that. Now, but if you knew about memory addresses and registers, then why would you program in YAB? The other way is to open a file and poke a number to it. Now that number would, I assume, be a ASCII code. However, I've never used it because I know an easier way, which we'll get to in a future lesson. Okay, then peek and peek string or peek dollar, whatever you want to call it. So in classical BASIC, again, that was mostly used to look up the exact value of a specific memory address. And we've inherited that. We are now using it for other purposes, to get information. If you follow the other half of this course, the even-numbered episodes, then you will know that I use that, for example, to find out the width of the screen, because you don't want to open a window that's wider than your user's screen. Right, and to position a window very exactly. So that is the sort of thing you can do with peek. Right, and you can also grab a single character from a file. Again, there are easier ways to do that. So you see screen height, screen width. I use those a lot. Right. Desktop height. Right. Desktop width, that's also something you're going to use. Right, let's see, menu height, scroll bar width, tab height, right, the number of arguments that have been passed. So if you start your program, call it test jab / help, right, that's one argument, right, but it'll return 2 because it counts the name of the program itself as well. Then whether a program is bound. Yeah, I think one would have to test if that also worked with something that you compiled in the build factory. I think it does. Right, version number of YAB, the loudness from the system, right, and the last error statement. Right, so those are all very useful pieces of information that allows you to place your application in a wider context. Then you have peak string or peak dollar or whatever you want to call it. That returns a string, not a number. Right, and here you have info level, right? So with poke you could set the info level, and with peak string you can read it back. Right, error, right, return the name of the library the statement is concerned in. OS, you don't really need to do that right now, but it's sort of future-proofing. Right now YAB only runs on Haiku, but there was a time when it would return BOS or Zeta. Right, then you can grab environment variables which basically have been set in bash, like your path statement. Might be useful for you to know where your executables are on the machine that you're running your app on, so that you know that you have access to those. Right, okay, then this one, refs received, right, that is what is that again? I've used it. Okay, the tracker item which you used open with. Right, so in other words, if you go to your YAB file and you open it with YAB, then this will tell you exactly what was happening there. Right, return one of the arguments. Now you've seen in peek you can find a number of arguments. So now you can set up, right, use peek to find out how many arguments were passed. And then you set up a little for next loop to see what each of those arguments were. So now you can tell your user to that he can use either -h or -- help. And you can throw up a little help screen. Okay, so that were some of the ways that a YAB program can get information out of the underlying operating system. So I hope that was useful. It's a bit early in the series to be doing this, but I'm here, I've got some time, so I thought let me just get this out of the way.